Hi guys, it's Dr. Mo here from Inspire Medics. We'll get started in a very short while. We're just waiting for everybody to join us, of course. We are recording this webinar, so if you are worried that you're going to miss it, you're on call, for example, you have somewhere to go to halfway through, we'll record it, we'll upload it onto YouTube very soon. We've got a very special guest on today. His name is Andrew. He's a solicitor who's based up north, and I'll introduce him very shortly as well. So guys, we'll just give it another 1 or 2 minutes to let everybody join. We've got about 21 attendees so far. Dr. Sandu will be joining us as well, but he's just finishing his clinic right now as we speak. So he'll probably be with us in the next 20 minutes or so. So today's webinar is going to be about visa applications. So if you're sitting the PLAB exam, if you're sitting PLAB 1, for example, you want to come to the UK. If you're sitting the PLAB 2 exam, you're looking to do the exam, of course, you're going to have to come to the UK. Or if you're applying for a job in the UK and you want to know a bit about visas, that's all. This is all going to be important and relevant for doctors internationally who are coming, obviously, to the UK to work or study. Or prepare for exams. So like I said, we'll give it another 30 seconds. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Inspire Medics Visa Application Service. This is a free webinar where we're going to give you some top tips, some advice, and of course we've got a legal we've got the legal side of things today in terms of a solicitor who's going to join us. His name's Andrew Garside, and we'll introduce him shortly as well once we get properly started. So guys, there is of course another PLAB webinar in about a week's time. That's going to be a teaching webinar. So this one's a little bit different. This is going to be specifically talking about the Home Office and the immigration side of things in terms of coming to the UK. So I'm just going to do a screen share for a second so you can see the type of stuff we're going to be talking about today. And then shortly what we'll do is we'll get started. So just a quick overview of what's going to happen today. I'll introduce Andrew very soon as well. We'll do an introduction to obviously today's webinar. We'll go through why you may want to use a UK-based legal team when you're applying for visas. We'll talk a bit about the services they provide and the fees, how to secure a place. And of course, there'll be plenty of opportunities to ask questions and we'll provide answers for those questions. And like I said, we have someone who's qualified in the legal side of things. Andrew's a solicitor, Andrew Garside, who runs a legal firm up north near Manchester, which isn't too far. His firm isn't too far from Manchester, where the GMC exams are all done. And of course, we'll get an introduction done by him very soon as well. So I think what we'll do is we'll get started. I appreciate a couple of you will probably be joining us in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Quick show of hands, if you don't mind. Who here is going to sit PLAB 2 or has actually sat PLAB 2 already? If you just raise your hands, there'll be a button on Zoom where you can raise your hands. So we've got 5. Okay, good. And who here is currently sitting 6? Who here currently sitting PLAB 1 or is about to sit PLAB 1 in the near future? Oh, fantastic. So Dr. Malik, he's already passed PLAB 2. Hands up, quick show of hands. Who is going to be sitting the PLAB 1 exam in the near future or has already sat it? So I think we've got 5, 6, about 6 hands. Okay, fine. And who's already here in the UK? So quick show of hands, those of you who are already here in the UK. If you don't mind, guys, could you let us know where you're joining? So there's a chat button at the bottom of the webinar, of the Zoom software. You can just type in where you're joining us from. So for example, you're joining us from London, Manchester, Nigeria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, wherever it is in the world. Soumya, welcome back. India, Prashanti's from Saudi Arabia, Mohammed's from Kuwait. Dr. Malik is attending to gain some knowledge about the application process, fair enough, and is from India. Dr. CEO is joining from Nigeria, welcome. Natalia is from Western Siberia in Russia, welcome aboard. Amit Kumar is joining from Mumbai, India, fantastic. I think they used to call it Bombay. This is going back a long time. Rehab is joining us from Egypt. And Irtiza Bati is joining us from Pakistan, Dr. Irtiza. Gabriel is joining us from Nigeria. Welcome, Gabriel. And Amar is joining us from Kuwait. So if you do want to let us know where you're joining us from, please put that into the chat box. Kwame, welcome aboard, Kwame, is joining us from Ghana, so in Africa. What we'll do, I think, is we'll just C2 is joining us from Myanmar, booked a PLAB 2 on the 3rd of March 2021. apologies if I haven't pronounced the name correctly. Kayo is joining us from Myanmar. Sudesh is joining from Sri Lanka, and Ajibola or Dr. Anjurin is joining us from Nigeria. So what we'll do is we'll get started very soon. I can still see people trickling in, which is fair enough. If you don't mind, Andrew, I think most of the doctors here will probably recognize me. It's Dr. Mo here, co-founder of Inspire Medics. We've created the free PLAB 1 question bank. We've also created the PLAB 2 online video course. We do various educational stuff for doctors across the globe who are looking to come to the UK. We have a blog section on our website. We've got a team around us, which obviously can, which has been answering your queries, and we've been engaging with a lot of you on WhatsApp as well. So most of you have been sending us WhatsApp messages once obviously you've subscribed to our courses or our free question banks. So most of you probably already know who I am. Dr. Sandy is going to join us very soon as well. Andrew, it'd be nice if you don't mind just to introduce yourself, a bit about yourself and your background, so that the international doctors who are joining us today know who you are. And you can do that one of two ways. It'd be nice, obviously, if you can, to activate your camera, but if that isn't possible, then you may need to just activate your mic. So I'm just gonna stop the screen share for a second. And Andrew, there should be like a message that's popped up on your screen that will allow you to speak. So I'll just see if I can enable that feature. Fine. So whenever, if you'd like to obviously introduce yourself whenever you're ready, Andrew, that'd be perfect. But otherwise, we'll give it another 60 seconds before we get started. And of course, we'll get into this free webinar about the visa application process for PLAB doctors coming to the UK. So Andrew, I think you've unmuted your mic if you'd like to, is that right? So I can see you've unmuted your mic, but I can't hear you for some reason. So guys, whilst Andrew's trying to join us, I'm just going to live stream this to our Facebook group. So if you give me a moment, we'll get this connected to Facebook so that anybody who's in the Facebook groups can also obviously tune in to this free webinar to the visas. So if you give me a moment, we'll share it to the PLAB group that we have in Facebook. And we'll do it into the PLAB 2 exam preparation group. Actually, we'll do it into, I think the PLAB 1 exam preparation group is bigger, so we'll stream it into the PLAB 1 preparation group. And this will be going live into Facebook in the next 30 to 60 seconds as well. So if you give me a moment, I'm just trying to sort that out now. I'm actually on Facebook right now, trying to connect Zoom to Facebook, and then we'll get started into the actual webinar itself. So as you might be aware, the UK went into a second lockdown at the beginning of November. It's going to end, or hopefully it should end on the 2nd of December or early December. And then from there, hopefully the vaccinations program is going to be rolled out across the UK, initially for elderly people over the age of 60, and then also for healthcare professionals. And the aim is to get things back to normal as soon as possible once a vaccine has been rolled out for COVID-19. So PLAB visa webinar. I'm just going to get this to go live into the Facebook group. So this should now be streaming live into Facebook. So if some of you are joining us from Facebook, if you've got Facebook on your phone, I know in some parts of the world you get like Facebook data for free. For example, in Malaysia, you can use all social media networks for free. There's like no data cap on it, which is nice. Okay, so that's going into Facebook, which is good, and that's live streaming, and I'll let that run in the background. Okay, guys, let's get started in that case for today's webinar. So just going to do a screen share once more. Oh, give me a second. Give me a second, guys. I'm just going to hook up the power supply. It's got my laptop onto the mains electricity, and we'll get started in the next minute or so. Okay, guys, quick show of hands, quick thumbs up if you can see my screen. And then we'll go through. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Perfect. I can see a couple of people have put their hands up. So fine. Okay, let's do an introduction. So in order to get into obviously the UK, for example, to sit the PLAB 1 exam. So if you want to sit the PLAB 1 exam in the UK, you can sit it internationally. The PLAB 1 you can sit in most countries. For example, you can sit it in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nigeria. But if you want to come to the UK to sit the exam, you're going to need a visitor's visa. If you want to come to the UK to sit the PLAB 2 exam, which you have to do, you'll either need a visitor's visa or you can have a tier 2 visa. If you want to come to the UK to work, you're going to have a tier 2 visa, which I'll come on to very shortly. And the reason this is important is because when you apply for these visas, they're going to cost you money. It's going to cost you to apply for a visitor's visa or a tier 2 visa. And what you want to do is get it right the first time. So if you don't get the visa application process correct, what the Home Office in the UK can do is they can reject your visa application, and that means you lose the fee that you've paid. So for example, for a visitor's visa, it's approximately 195 to 100 pounds, and you lose all of that. Whereas for a tier 2 visa, it's between 200 roughly to 400 pounds. Again, if you don't get your application accepted for the visa, you lose all that money. So cost is one of the first reasons why you want to get it correct the first time. Some of you, a lot of you have been following various blogs online to do with the PLAB exam and IMGs, international medical graduates looking to come to the UK. There's Savvy IMG, there's Road to UK, and of course there's Nasir's Journey. Dr. Nasir was actually rejected twice for his visa application. This was a tier 2 visa from what we understand. So we caught up with Dr. Nasir, and he told us about the frustrations that he had in applying to the visas at that point in time, going back a couple of years. And that was frustrating for him because obviously he couldn't come to the UK on time, and again there was a cost implication, and so this is something that is not uncommon. A lot of times doctors will apply for visa applications and they won't always get accepted for whatever reason, whether it's documents not being in order or something's cropped up within the paperwork that they've submitted. There can be a host of different reasons which occur, which results in the visa application not being accepted. For example, in 2018, this is UK statistics from the Home Office, 2,360 doctors' visas were rejected in a 6-month period. So you can see that's a significant number when you realize that approximately 9,000 doctors sit the PLAB exam each year for PLAB 2, or 9,000 doctors for PLAB 1. So that's almost a third of those doctors looking to come to the UK. Their visas weren't being accepted, 2/3 and 66%. And really, one of the key things in terms of getting it right the first time is to make sure all the documents are in order. If you're able to get all your documents in order and get everything done properly the first time, it's going to reduce your stress. Because at the end of the day, you're preparing for these exams. You want as less stress as possible in the process. Like, you want to revise for your PLAB 1 or your PLAB 2. You want to secure your job postings, and then you want to make sure everything flows naturally. You don't want to be worrying about things going on with regards to the Home Office. If possible, you want to get those done first time properly, and to reduce the amount of friction that's going to be created in the application process. So one of the important reasons is to decrease your stress from your side. And then the final reason is if you don't get the application done correctly, so the visa application, whether it's the visitor's visa or the tier 2 visa, you could potentially miss your exam. So obviously, if you don't get your visa done and it doesn't get accepted, then you're not able to come to the UK to sit the PLAB 2 exam, or for example, for your job that you have lined up after PLAB 2. So these are all very important reasons to bear in mind when you're trying to get your visa application done right the first time. Or in some cases, if you're applying for the second or third time, a few of you have got in touch and said you've applied 2 or 3 times, and obviously it hasn't been accepted on those 2 or 3 occasions. Now, it's very important to understand that each visa application is different. And the reason it's different is because you as an individual are unique in your, in your own right. As you're applying to come to the UK. Now, the UK has various screening programs in place. They have safety and security measures to make sure, obviously, you're a safe individual to come to the UK. They want to make sure you have enough funds in place, for example, to come to the UK. They want to make sure, obviously, you're a legitimate person who's obviously, for example, not wanted by your government. So they do all these different checks for various different visa application programs they have in place. And so each application is unique in its own right. And so to say that one size fits all wouldn't exactly be correct, because the Home Office assesses each visa application on an individual basis, which is why some get rejected and some get accepted. And it's important to realize that, because when you're applying, you might think, oh, well, I'm just going to copy what my friend did, which there's a good chance, yes, it'll be accepted and you'll come onto the, your visa application will be accepted. But if there's a subtle difference between your journey and your friend's journey in terms of, for example, how much funds they have, or the journey in terms of how the route of entry to the United Kingdom and what's happened previously in their travels, the application may get rejected because of, unique differences in your particular case. So it's important to bear that in mind when you're applying for the visas. And of course, that's where having a legal representative or somebody to talk you through your application or to take on board your application really, really helps. And certainly that's the services that Andrew's team offers in terms of the legal services that they have in place for immigration and visas, of course. So let's talk a bit about exactly what the Home Office has in place for UK visas. So there's two types of visas. There's a visitor visa, which obviously you can use for PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. And then there's the Tier 2 visa, which you're mainly going to be using after you've finished the PLAB 2 and you're applying for jobs. And I'm going to go into these two specific visas in a lot more detail. Let's start off with the visitor visa. So the visitor visa is valid for up to 6 months. You can use this to sit PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. So obviously most of you probably want to sit PLAB 1 in your home country, but certainly for PLAB 2, you may want to come here for a visitor's visa. And the visitor visa, strictly speaking, will also cover you for your academy. So you can come to sit the come to sit the exam, but you can also do the academy stuff at the same time. So the PLAB 2 Academy, for example, based in Manchester. What you can't do on the visitor visa is you can't get work or get married, and that kind of makes sense. The visitor's visa should be purely for visiting purposes or for exam purposes, which is what the Home Office allow for the PLAB GMC exam. You need to apply 90 days before coming. So it's important to plan this. Let's say your PLAB 2 exam is in March of 2021, which one of you mentioned, I think. You want to apply 90 days before coming, so the visa's all in place, it's been approved, and therefore you can obviously show it, for example, at the airport, or when you come into the UK, you've got that visa ready, and all the documents are prepared to allow you entry into the country. You will get a decision within 3 weeks of applying for a visitor's visa. So within 21 days, you'll get a decision whether or not it's been accepted, or obviously it's not been accepted, it's been rejected. And as I said, you can stay for up to 6 months. You do have to show proof of certain things. These are things like flights. Obviously, when are you going to depart from, let's say, Mumbai? Do you have funds in place for the duration of the visit that you come to the UK? And of course, you have to have a valid passport in place. So your passport, for example, has to show that it's not going to expire for the duration of the journey that you're here. So let's say you're coming to the PLAB 2 exam in March 2021, but your passport expires in February 2021. The Home Office is going to reject that visa application because your passport expires. So you need to have a valid passport that's going to be valid for the duration of your travel and to allow you to get back in time. And then, of course, don't forget with the visitor's visa, you do have to go to the visa application center in your country. Well, they'll do something called biometrics. They'll take your fingerprints, for example, and also they'll get an up-to-date photograph. And that's all important for the visa application process for the visitor visa. So the visitor visa is actually relatively straightforward, but people can get caught out, and the visitor, you can get rejections for the visitor visa application. And again, that's where having a legal team in place from the UK would certainly be beneficial. In terms of the Tier 2 visa, this is where you're applying for jobs and you need a Tier 2 visa to stay, for example, for 3 to 5 years plus. And specifically as doctors who are sitting the PLAB exam, you want to apply for the health and care Tier 2 visa. So there's the normal Tier 2 visa, but then there's also the health and care, or the healthcare Tier 2 visa. And this allows you to work in the United Kingdom. You do need to demonstrate proof of employment. So one of the requirements when you apply for this visa is that you have to show that you have some type of contractual contract in place with, for example, the National Health Service or a GMC approved or an Home Office approved recruitment agency who's able to demonstrate that, yes, let's say Dr. Ali from Pakistan has proof of employment, and they can demonstrate that in their application. Now, the nice thing about the tier 2 visa is around about the 5-year mark, if you've worked for 5 years in the UK, you can then apply for UK citizenship. So some of you are going to want to obviously become UK citizens. You're going to want to have a UK passport, and you have to work for a certain amount of years before you're eligible for that. The tier 2 visa will allow you to do that. So you have the tier 2 visa when you start working, you renew it at 3 years. So remember, the tier 2 visa lasts in most cases for 3 years. You can get it for more than 3 years, but there's an extra fee. But then at 5 years, you can apply for a UK passport and of course become a UK citizen. Now, recently there have been some changes in the last couple of months, because obviously certain professions are what we call shortage occupations, i.e. the United Kingdom needs them. Nurses, for example, doctors. The government has incentivized the tier 2 visa application program. What they've done is they've lowered the fees, which means it's a lot more cost effective now to apply for a tier 2 visa if you're a doctor. And I'll come on to the fees very, very soon. The other benefit of obviously applying to the tier 2 visa as a doctor is that there's no longer a health surcharge. So about 6 to 12 months ago, there was a health surcharge, which means you had to pay a fee to be covered for your healthcare costs when you came to the UK under the tier 2 visa. That no longer applies. So you save yourself some money because it's been scrapped. You can, of course, extend or you can switch the visa. So let's say you're on I don't know, for example, let's say you're on I'm not an expert here, but Andrew might be able to chip in a bit later. Let's say you're on a tier 4 or tier 5 visa and you want to switch it to a tier 2 visa. That's possible. The legal team that we work with, Andrew and his team will be able to talk you through how you can switch your visa from a tier 4 or 5 to a tier 2 if you're on a different type of visa. The other thing that you can do is you can extend your visa. Let's say you're on a tier 2 visa, which only allows you to stay for 3 years. You can extend that visa for it to be more than 3 years. And again, having some legal advice in this area, which Andrew's able to provide and his team for free, in terms of initial queries, is certainly very, very beneficial to prevent your visa application being rejected for whatever reason. Don't forget, on our tier 2 visa, family members can join. So if you've got a spouse, a wife, you've got kids and sons and daughters, you can bring them along as well. And of course, you have to apply for a separate visa application for them, but it can all fall under the tier 2 visa application process. One of the requirements of the tier 2 visa is you have to demonstrate that you have personal savings in your account. Andrew might be able to elaborate on this a bit later on, but from what we understand, there's no cutoff. You don't have to demonstrate a certain amount, but you have to show that you can support yourself when you arrive in the United Kingdom. And these are all key things to bear in mind when you're applying for the tier 2 visa. Some of you have just joined us, guys. We are streaming live into Facebook and we are recording this. I'm going to put it onto YouTube in the next few days. So if you have missed a little bit, not a problem. There is a question and answer button at the bottom of Zoom. If you press on it, you'll be able to submit your questions and we'll be able to take questions and answers from you guys. We've got Andrew present today, who's of course who works as a solicitor. His area of expertise is immigration and visas, and he'll be able to answer any questions as well if you need some free advice today. And of course, his team works very closely with our team in terms of helping PLAB doctors come to the UK and successfully submit their visa applications. So let's talk a bit about the fees. What are the Home Office fees? So the middle column here, where it says visa cost, £95, £232, £464. This is the visa cost that you have to pay for towards the Home Office costs. So you can't get around these costs. If you want to, for example, come to the UK and you want to apply for a PLAB 2 visitor visa, it's £95. That's what the Home Office charges. If, on the other hand, you're applying for a tier 2 visa and you want to come for up to 3 years, then the visa cost for the application to the Home Office is £232. And then if you want to apply for a tier 2 visa, but you want to apply for more than 3 years, the Home Office costs are £464. Now, in terms of getting advice, that's completely free. In terms of Andrew's legal team, who's based near Manchester, they've been operating in the UK for at least a decade, and they're very familiar with obviously the Home Office regulations and rules in terms of the application process for the visa, visitor visa, and the tier 2 visa. The advice they provide will be free, but if you want to use their services to, for example, apply for a PLAB visitor visa or a tier 2 visa, then they have their separate solicitor legal fees. And the beauty of what Andrew's team provides is they'll make sure all your documents are in order. They'll make sure all your documents are compliant with the Home Office requirements and current regulations. Remember, visa entry regulations change all the time. And so if you're applying based on the old regulations, it's likely that your application will be rejected and you'll lose the £95 or the £232 or £464. And so having a UK legal team to submit your application is beneficial in maximizing your chances of your visa application being accepted. And so Andrew's team's, their solicitors fees for a visitor visa is £500. For the tier 2 visa, they've got a fixed cost. Doesn't matter if you apply for up to 3 years or more than 3 years, the fixed cost is £720. So what I'd recommend is certainly you should get advice, free advice from the legal team based in the UK. All you need to do is drop us an email at info@i-medics.co.uk. You may want to obviously, you may have a very personal question, for example, of I grew up in such and such country. I've been working as a consultant for 4 years. I've got, let's say, $10,000 worth of savings, but my spouse is based in Australia. That's quite a personal question. And you may want to run that past the legal team to see what the best way is to apply to the UK for example, the tier 2 visa. So each of you will have a unique situation, and of course, it's worth getting free legal advice with regards to that. You can, of course, ask questions today. So in today's webinar, you can ask us questions about the visa program, either using the chat feature or the Q&A feature. You just need to press the button, submit your question, and we'll answer it live today. But essentially, in a nutshell, just to recap, the visa application process, you want to get it right the first time because there's a cost implication, and doctors' visa applications do get rejected. And actually, the rate in 2018 was significantly high. It was more than 50%, 66%. There are two types of visas. There's a visitor visa and the healthcare tier 2 visa, and the visitor visa is valid up to 6 months, whereas the tier 2 visa is valid can be anywhere from up to 3 years and above. And of course, there's a cost implication both in terms of the Home Office, but if you want to use UK legal representatives to submit your application, which will increase your chances, it will maximize your chances of getting the visa, of it not being rejected, then there are solicitors fees as well. And we've broken down the total costs. But today, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some questions. So Parisa has got a question. I don't know, Andrew, if you're able to join us at this point, whether it's by camera or by audio, Andrew, because then you'll be able to chip in with some of these questions. So let's see what's going on here. Fine, I just sent a quick IM instant messenger chat message to Andrew. He may be able to join us for this Q&A session. I'm not quite sure what's going on, possibly a tech issue. But we've got a couple of questions. Let's try and get these questions answered if possible. So we'll start by taking it in order. So the first question is from Parisa. Is it possible to change the standard visitor visa to a tier 2 in the UK without leaving the UK? So Parisa, you can't, from what we understand, you can't change the visitor visa into a tier 2 visa. That's not possible. So you have to apply for the visitor visa once, and you get that, and then you have to apply for the tier 2 visa separately. Now, I may be wrong, some of the regulations may have changed recently, but that's our current understanding. And if that's incorrect, what Andrew will be able to do is obviously type into the chat box to update us if that's not the case. But you can, of course, email us. What we'll do is, if you email us at info@i-medics.co.uk, we'll forward that on to the legal team, and they can send you free legal advice. But from what we understand, visitors visa first, you apply, but you can't then change it to a tier 2. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, Shaswati has a question about personal savings and visa fee for dependent visa. So Shaswati, I assume you're talking about this tier 2 visa. So initially there was like a cutoff for the tier 2 visa. There was like, you have to have, for example, £900 worth of savings. This was going back a couple of months, but now the Home Office regulations have changed somewhat. The guidance now is you must have enough savings for the duration of your visit, from what we understand. Now, again, the legal team will be able to advise you on that more specifically. For example, let's say you're coming to London for 2 years, 3 years. The legal team will be able to say, okay, fine, you need to demonstrate this amount of savings as a minimum. And that's where having specific advice will be useful. And again, it's info@i-medics.co.uk. Drop them a quick message now. We'll forward it onto them tomorrow so they're able to answer that question more specifically. But in terms of the specific answer that you've asked, your personal savings should be enough to cover you to be able to support yourself for the duration of the visit for that specific visa. Nimi's got a question. Do you need IELTS required for visa? The short answer, Nimi, is if you are sitting PLAB 1 or PLAB 2, you would have already had done the IELTS. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. But essentially, I think for the tier 2 visa, IELTS is a requirement. I don't think it's a requirement from the top of my head for the visitor visa, but it's not something you should worry about, because if you're sitting PLAB 1, you would have had the IELTS already done. So that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, let's, so we've got another question here. It's a very interesting question from Amar. Is having a rejection harmful to further application? So let's say you get rejected for a visitor's visa, and then is it harmful for the next application? So there is something called a lockout period. What that means is if you apply for a visa and you get rejected, you have to wait a certain amount of time, from what we understand, before you apply again. Again, the regulations may have changed recently. There was a big change in August, but essentially the only downside is you have to wait a certain amount of time before you reapply. So I hope that answers the question. But apart from that, there's no other harm in getting rejected the first time. You can apply again, of course. Vikash has got a question. I'm an Indian citizen as my mother. My father is Nepalese. I'm studying MBBS in Nepal. Will that cause a problem for the visa in the UK? Vikash, no, that's not a problem. You can have for example, one parent in being a citizen of one country and another parent being a citizen of another country. That's not a problem at all. What you will have to obviously enter into the visa application is what country you're a citizen of, how long you've stayed there for, what your occupation is, for example. And so that specifically with regard to your parents shouldn't be an issue. So I hope that answers the question. Afreen, what are the possible reasons for applications being rejected? So again, Andrew, I'm not sure if you're able to join us for this bit here. What are the possible reasons for applications being rejected? I'll just save that question for a moment. I'll come back to it in case Andrew wants to chip in. But I will answer that question if obviously Andrew isn't able to join us in the next 5-10 minutes. So a couple of common reasons for rejections. A is not having all the relevant documents in place. That's an easy one. If you know what the documents are, you should be able to submit them. Number two, if you don't have, for example, up-to-date documents, so you have the relevant documents, but they're not up to date, like your visa, your passport's going to expire in a short period of time. Sorry, guys, I may have a message. Okay, fine. So Andrew has joined us, but for some reason he's not able to tune in with his mic or his video. So what we can do is forward some of these questions on to Andrew and his legal team, and they'll be able to answer them, or possibly also to be able to type them into the chat box if he's able to do so right now. So Afreen, a couple of reasons. If your documents are out of date, if you don't have the correct documents in place, the UK government does do some security checks as well, from what we understand. So obviously, if there's any security issues, they may reject the application. If you're not able to demonstrate that you've got enough funds for the duration of your visit, obviously, how are you going to support yourself? If you don't have, for example, a return flight, I mean, I know you can have an open ticket, but if you don't have a return flight, or if you're not able to demonstrate where you're going to stay, that could be other reasons why they're going to reject the application. So those are a couple of general reasons. What you might want to do, Afreen, is just drop us an email. I'm going to type it into the chat box for you. It's info at i-medics.co.uk. And if you email us with that question again, what the legal team will do is they'll be able to provide you with additional free legal advice with regards to that question. So Afreen, I hope that answers the question. I hope you're keeping safe and well. Mohammed says, is it necessary to provide 6 month statements, 6 months of statements of my sponsor's bank account, or a smaller statement will work for PLAB 2 visitor? Mohammed, if you don't mind, I'm not sure of the exact duration of those statements, but our legal team will be able to advise you specifically on that specific question. We are aware you have to provide obviously necessary bank statements, but how long you have to go back with regards to those statements, I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, my expertise is medical education. So, Mohammed, if you don't mind, I've just put the email address into the chat box down below. It's info@i-medics.co.uk. Or just leave us your email by emailing us with your question, and we'll forward that onto the legal team. The legal team are very good. They'll get back to you within 24 hours, and they'll be able to answer that question specifically for you. So next question is from Dr. CEO. When applying for the visitor visa to write PLAB 2, must we state the duration of our stay? Technically, you should put the duration of your stay. I think there's a place in the application where you can do that, and the reason for that is the Home Office may check, does it fit in with, for example, the airline tickets and the accommodation that they have booked? Because obviously, if there's an inconsistency that, oh, this person's staying for, let's say, only they're going to be staying for 3 weeks, but the tickets for the flights are only for like 2 weeks. They return in 2 weeks. There's an inconsistency there which may get flagged up. So it's important that you do mention obviously how long you're going to stay for. But again, it's worth running that past our legal team so that they can obviously double check things if you have any further concerns. Is OET enough or IELTS? So this is from Nimi, is mandatory for visa purposes. Certainly for tier 2, for the tier 2 visa, you do need an English language test certificate of some sort. So OET or IELTS, either one will be fine. And like I said, guys, if you sat the PLAB 2 exam already, or you sat PLAB 1, you probably have already done the IELTS or the OET, so it shouldn't be a problem. Again, if you speak to our legal team directly, so you can say, okay, hi, my name's Nimi. I'd like to find out a bit about the English language test. I have for example, 7.5 score in the following English exam test. Is that going to be enough for visa purposes? And then the legal team that we work with can give you further advice on it. So I hope, Nimi, that answers the question. Tharaka, if I get the visa for the healthcare support worker, can I do PLAB 2 in the same go? So Tharaka, essentially, so it's a tricky one, because our understanding of tier 2 is you can only get it if you're going to be working in the UK. And what that means is you must have passed PLAB 2 in the first place in order to start working. However, you may have a sponsor in the UK before sitting PLAB 2 who will be able to sponsor you and say that after this candidate has finished the PLAB 2 exam, we're going to sponsor them for their tier 2 visa. Then that might be possible. But that's a really technical question, Tharaka. And what I would recommend that you do is to get proper legal advice on that, is to, for free, is to email us at info@i-medics.co.uk with that exact question. And then what we can do is get the legal team to give you specific advice from within the UK, and they can double check that for you, no problems. Prashanthi has a question. If you are a fresher doctor and have no work experience, is it still possible to apply for a tier 2 visa? Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to have any prior experience from your own home country, for example, to demonstrate in the tier 2 visa application. We have doctors who have just come out of medical school, they've set up PLAB 1, PLAB 2, and they're applying for a tier 2 visa. That's not a problem. Mainly what the UK's Home Office is looking for is if you've got a tier 2 sponsor, for example, if you've got a contractual job lined up with the National Health Service, and obviously you comply with all the Home Office regulations for tier 2 visa in terms of their application process, then it's generally not a problem. But of course, it's sensible to get legal advice when you apply for your visa. And the reason for that is the legal team will check all your documents. They'll check all the documents, make sure everything is in order, and then they will communicate with the Home Office. They'll submit the applications and the documents and make sure everything has a high chance of being accepted. So Anonymous says, how many pounds will be required for 6 months? So if you're applying for the tier 2 visa, if you're applying for the visitor visa, it's £95. If you're applying for the tier 2 visa, which is obviously anywhere for up to 3 years, it's 260. Let's have a quick look. It's £232, and if you're applying for more than 3 years, it's £464. But essentially, if you're applying for a visitor's visa, it's £95. If you're not going through a legal team, you're applying by yourself. But if you're going to apply using the services of a legal team in the UK, the extra charge will be £500. Highly recommended, because obviously they'll reduce the amount of stress you have to go through and increase and maximize your chances of the application being accepted. Fakrul's got a question for us. How much funds do you need to put in your current account, and for how long to get a visitor visa or a tier 2 visa? Fakrul, what I'd recommend for that specific question is to speak to our legal team directly. And the reason for that is they'll be able to advise you on your personal circumstances. And the reason for that, Fakrul, is because you might be staying in the UK for, let's say, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or whatever duration it is. They'll be able to advise you on the specific requirements for you as an individual and how much funds you may need. So I'd get in touch directly, because obviously it depends on the duration. Kwame has a question. Is it possible to get a TB certificate in the UK if you are applying for a tier 2 visa from the UK? Kwame, do you mean a TB certificate with regards to vaccination? If that's the case, if you don't mind clarifying the question. If that's not what you mean, if you don't mind clarifying it for us in the chat feature or the question feature, that's okay. Because I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. I assume you mean a TB certificate for the vaccination. Anonymous has got a question here. Having done the IELTS before PLAB 1 and its validity is 2 years only, what if we, at the time of the tier 2 visa, is expired? Okay, that's a good question. I assume that you probably have to do the IELTS again if it's expired. However, remember the visa requirements are separate to the PLAB requirements. So your IELTS obviously is valid for 2 years for PLAB, but that may not be the case for the Home Office. The Home Office may say, oh yeah, for 2 years or 2.5 years ago, if you sat the exam, that's fine. But I'd probably double check that with our legal team. If you drop us an email, this is a friendly email saying, this is my question, send it to info@i-medics.co.uk, and then what the legal team can do is answer that question specifically for you. So let us know when your IELTS was done. Let us know when you're applying for the tier 2 visa, and they'll be able to give you free advice. Okay, next question is from Shamanth. Having done IELTS, okay, it's the same question, fine. Anonymous, after getting GMC registration, what visa is required to start the foundation year program? So it's the tier 2 visa. I'll just do a quick screen share for if you missed it earlier. So it's this visa here. It's the tier 2. Remember, you want to apply for the tier 2 visa, the health and care visa. So there's 2 types of tier 2 visas. There's the non-healthcare one, and then there's the healthcare one. And the benefit of applying for the healthcare one is A, there's reduced fees. B, you're more likely to get accepted because you're a shortage occupation applicant. And C, you don't have to pay the health surcharge. So this is the visa you have to apply for, and that's why it's so important. So sorry, I'm getting messages from my team, and I just want to make sure it's not an important message. Okay, fine. So that, I hope, from Anonymous answers the question. For GMC registration, what visa is required to start foundation year program? It's the tier 2 healthcare visa. Okay, guys, I think that answers most of your questions. What I'd recommend you do once more, it's going to give you our email once more. It's info@i-medics.co.uk. Please do drop us an email. You'll get free legal advice from Andrew and his team. They've got a legal team up north based near Manchester, and they're able to and they specialize in immigration and visa applications. Kwame, thank you for clarifying your question. You said TB clearance certificate for tier 2 visa, not the vaccination. Kwame, if you don't mind, I'm not an expert in this, but if you drop us an email, the email's just above in the chat box, info@i-medics.co.uk. What the legal team and Andrew's team will do is they'll answer that question for you specifically. I don't know the exact answer to that, but that's their expertise, and they'll be able to provide you a proper and thorough answer to make sure everything's obviously in line with what the Home Office has currently released for the latest changes. So guys, thank you for joining us for this visa webinar for PLAB doctors. We do have a PLAB teaching webinar next week. If you don't have the link, please check out the website. I'm just going to do a screen share for you guys now. I want to show you something very quickly. So you should be able to see my entire screen. Okay, so this is the iMedix website. If you click on a PLAB, and then if you go to the Academy side, so it's the third one along Academy, there's a link for the Obtain UK visa. So there's a couple of services that we're able to provide if you use this link. First of all, you can get free advice. So you can basically choose on free advice. Once you do that, you can click on free access now. And then what will happen is your details will be forwarded onto us, and we'll forward your details onto the legal team, who will then be able to give you free advice with regards to visa applications as a PLAB doctor. If, on the other hand, you're confident that you want to apply for a visitor's visa using legal expertise in the UK, or you want to apply for the Tier 2 visa using legal expertise in the UK, you want to go through Andrew's team, then again, you can apply for the services directly, and you can buy it now. And then in that way, what we'll do is we'll pay for the visa application, the legal team will do, and they'll proof all the documents and submit it to the Home Office, and maximizes your chances of obviously of getting your visa application accepted. For those of you who want to join us for our teaching webinar next week, again, if you click on PLAB under the free section, you have the PLAB live monthly webinar. If you click on it, it'll give you a Zoom webinar registration form, very quick and easy form, email address, first name and second name. And next week's teaching is on depression and BPPV, really, really useful for the PLAB 1, but also for the PLAB 2. And for those of you sitting the PLAB 2 exam, we've got a one-day academy for the PLAB 2 exam, which is a full day communication skills PLAB Academy, and it's reasonably well priced. And we've got one next week on the 10th of January. Again, would highly recommend joining us for that as well. So guys, we're just going to wrap up the webinar there for everybody. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope, of course, if you've got any questions, you do get in touch. It's info@i-medics.co.uk. Kwame, please get in touch. We will forward your question on, because I know it hasn't been answered properly. Andrew, thank you for joining us. I know you weren't able to talk or join us via video, but hopefully for the next one, you'll be able to join us. And guys, if you've got any friends or colleagues that you know, we will have another visa webinar, hopefully with Andrew joining us at the same time. And we'll be able to answer all these questions within the webinar that we weren't able to answer. So, oh, okay, one more question. Approximately how much time it will take to bring spouse after attaining Tier 2 visa? So the answer to that is it depends, because once, let's say you get a Tier 2 visa and you want to bring your spouse, you then have to apply for a visa for them. And it'd be sensible to get legal advice on that. But essentially, once you've got your visa, it increases your chances of your spouse coming along, because it makes sense. Like, you know, the UK government isn't going to be mean with regards to, oh, we're going to let the doctor in, but not their spouse. As long as the spouse's visa application is all above board and they've done it properly, there's a high chance that that visa application will be accepted, and you can bring your wife or your partner to the UK along, obviously, with yourselves. But to get specific advice, because obviously each individual is different, each country is assessed differently by the Home Office. That's another reason why some visa applications don't get accepted, because the Home Office look at the country and the city that, for example, you may be coming from, and your background, and they factor that into your visa application. So what I'd recommend, whoever put in that question, is drop us a quick email. We'll forward the email on to Andrew's legal team, C&G Solicitors, and they'll be able to give you specific advice on your personal circumstances, because I appreciate some of you don't want to talk about your personal circumstances, like how much money you've got in the account and so on and so forth, during a live webinar. So guys, I'm just going to wrap up the webinar there. Thank you for joining us as always. We hope you find the Inspire Medics platform useful. It's been really nice to see you guys in our visa webinar. Andrew, thank you for joining us as well. And hopefully we'll see most of you in about a week's time. And Andrew and everybody else who's joined us today, take care and enjoy the rest of your evening, of course. And we have recorded this. We will be sending out the YouTube link in about 72 hours.